Hey, Senda.
Hey, Phil.
Let's continue chit-chatting tonight.
Yes, please.
And welcome to another episode of Panda's Talking Games. I'm your host who's pretty chill that I'm not writing episodes this week. Phil.
And your name is...
Damn it.
You know, I normally fix this
proud
sort of
myself.
thing. But I'm not fixing this sort of thing just now, so they're all going to get to hear that cold. Anyway, and I am your host, who is very pleased to be not dealing with editing because I unfortunately have a sick pet situation occurring. Senda.
Yeah, so just a quick reminder, if you are new to the show, that somehow you have found us through a If You Listen to Us, You Will Love Us campaign. These are not our normal shows. This is our, I believe, third of what we are calling our Chit Chats, fourth of what we're calling our Chit Chats. These are a little more relaxed. We are still dispensing decent gaming advice and conversation, but we're not doing our fully scripted nor our fully edited episodes. If you do want to hear something like that, like you've stumbled onto us and you're like, well, I wonder what the rest of their show sounds like, by all means, hit our backlog and hit anything with a number.
Yeah, there's over 200 episodes of it.
So just hit anything with a number and you'll get a feel for what we sound like when we do the show under our normal circumstances. But because we're both still in lockdown, because the world is still in the midst of a pandemic, and we are prioritizing our own self-care, we are doing the show in a relaxed format, which is no scripting and no editing. Which allows us to still chit-chat together, which we love, and produce shows for you, which we hope you enjoy, but take the less fun parts, the parts that wear on us a little out for right now, which makes life a little easier for both of us.
Yeah, so all that said, you will find the outtakes, as you may have already noticed, for this episode are embedded within the episode itself, like Easter eggs. You have to find them.
In cooking terms, we have folded the outtakes into...
Folded the outtakes.
Gently.
Yes. Gently into the show so that it won't lose its fluff.
Yes, exactly. Indeed.
Now we're going to bake it.
Yes. Well, we have to be careful with that statement. You are actually in a state where baking is...
That's completely different path than I was even thinking of. I was like, in my head, there was angel food cake.
No, I was with you. Gently fold is right. I was totally with you.
Tonight, I gently folded spring onions into like a cool savory pancake batter and made like these neat fried spring onion pancakes.
When we get to the end, I want to ask you about that recipe because I love scallion pancakes and I saw the picture of them and I really would like to make some myself. Okay, anyway,
it was easy. Good.
Depart from that. Our Chit Chat episode tonight is going to have two main topics: things in gaming that are giving us life. And again, shout out and much love to the Gauntlet podcast for introducing us to the phrase giving us life. So things in gaming that are giving us life. And we'll follow that up with something a little different for this chit chat tonight. Things we are watching that are giving us life.
Yeah, we figured we talked about the kitchen enough. Although we could keep talking about it.
Oh, we could, because I made some stuff and so did you this weekend, but we'll not.
Yeah, if you're a Patreon backer, you might hear more about the kitchen stuff in the outtakes that I'm also not editing.
Right. So, with no further ado, Senda, what in gaming is giving you life this week?
So, I finally got to play This Discord Has Ghosts in It. You all may recall that I have been going through my pandemic gaming with a specific lens on, like, what are the things that I can play that are built to be played online, that excel at playing online, that this is actually the experience that this game was intended to deliver to you. And so I've been working my way through a list of those games, and my group only gets together once every couple of weeks, so we're not flying through it super quickly, but we are definitely moving through some games like that, which I love. So this last week, we got to this Discord has ghosts in it, and of all of the games that we have played right now remotely that were sort of built for this kind of thing, of which we played a bunch now, it was my favorite. And it was my favorite because it used the tools that it had, right? Discord, in an extremely unique way to be genre reinforcing. And it played really brilliantly. It's still under development. They're still making changes to it. There's some things that we tweaked on the fly as we started playing it, just in terms of like setup, giving people time to plan and that sort of thing to basically have a little bit more prep behind it. There are some things that I would tweak a little bit further in terms of like giving people a heads up so they could go out on the internet and find resources and stuff to play with and have them close at hand instead of trying to hunt them down mid-game. But like overall, that has been my best this game specifically written to play online experience. And I'm super excited about it. And I'm basically now like mulling through a Gnome Stew article talking about why that is. And I think what it comes down to, just to summarize, like why I'm super excited about it, is they took something that Discord does, which is that you can have both text chat and voice chat, and you can have them simultaneously, right? And, that's just a thing that Discord does. And they took that, and instead of it being a game that's like, a real world simulation of it still being Discord, where you have we're seeing a lot of games, and some of them are very cool. Don't get me wrong. I've played some of them now, and I really enjoyed them, of things of like, we're going to use Zoom to have an office meeting, but it's about angels. That was really fun and cool, but we're using Zoom to have an office meeting, which is something that we already do with Zoom. But we've changed the characters who are having the office meeting, right? Which is the fun twist part. The cool thing about this Discord has ghosts in it is that it's not about Discord at all in any way, shape, or form. But it uses the functionality of Discord to really effectively create the feeling of the weird kind of broken communication that we tend to associate with like supernatural investigators communicating with the supernatural. So it's really cool. I really enjoyed it. And I think that's probably the one that we're going to play again. I don't know if we're going to play it again next week, if we're going to play something else again like next week, but we really might play it again next week because we really enjoyed it. And we were like, wow, would love to try it with like these couple of tweaks to it. And like those of us who are playing investigators are like, man, I want to play a ghost. And some of the ghosts are like, I really want to play an investigator. Like it was really, really, really good. And I would highly recommend it. And when I'm saying tweaking things, really all I mean is that we spent a little bit of time, we let the ghosts go off and like discuss where they were, what kind of house it was, and like what their relationship to that location was, which was just sort of tacked on, added on to the rules so that they had a little bit more to work with. And the only other thing is, since they can post anything they want, they can just text chat, they can post audio, they can post video, they can post GIFs and images, like all that kind of stuff. One of the other things that they just brought up, the ghosts brought up after, was it would help if we had a little bit more time to go out and find some of those resources once we knew what we were, so we weren't scrambling for them mid game, right? And so I'm like, cool, like those are two really minor things, and one of those is one of those things that my group tends to do by default, which is like, hang on a second, this doesn't have any mechanics for relationships, so let's pause while we sort of session zero the beginning of this and make relationships, and so we did that. Anyway, so obviously I'm very excited about it because I've been talking about it very fast.
Yes.
But it was a very good experience, and would highly recommend. It's super cool.
So I think what's cool about this is that this game to me, because I don't want to skirt your Gnome Stew talk, because you and I actually wound up chatting about that earlier.
I mean, you can.
No, it's okay.
I'm still going to write the article about it.
It's okay. I want to come at it from a different angle. Okay. All right. So in the past, if you look at something like Starcrossed or Dread, right, that came before it.
Yeah.
That's a game that took another toy, right? It took Jenga, right? Another game.
Yeah.
Jenga being a dexterity game, and repurposed it to be the mechanic for the role-playing experience they wanted to create, right? In Dread, the falling of the tower is your eventual death, and the falling of the tower in Starcross is the inevitable moment where the two lovers can no longer remain separated and fall into their feelings for each other, right?
Yep.
So
I love that game so much.
Right. Oh, absolutely. Right. And so it's a brilliant, I mean, both of them are brilliant in their repurposing of an existing object in order to make a game mechanic out of it. Right.
Yeah.
Which I think is really neat. To some lesser degree, you could say the same thing about the Savage Worlds use of a poker deck for initiative.
Sure,
there are countless games that use tarot cards.
Capers just using like basically the betting with a card deck is as genre enforcing in play, but also the core mechanic. Yeah.
And so then there's also I can't name any of them off the top of my head, but I know a number of games that use tarot decks as a way to kind of spur story forth and stuff like that.
Royal Blood.
Oh yeah, right, Royal Blood.
I've played a couple of them on Sasky.
Yes.
And I feel really bad because I now can't remember
it's okay.
the name of the first one.
The second I say them, they all evacuate your head, which is perfectly fine. That's the same thing that happens to me. But wow, I just hit my mic. I'm so sorry.
Jeez, put your hands on your head.
No, it wasn't with my hand. Works. I moved my leg and I bumped the leg of the mic. Sorry.
Oh, shame. Put your legs on your head.
No, I'm really not that bendy. We'll talk about how I hurt myself stretching the other day.
No.
Anyway, my point being is that one of the interesting designs is to take something that we use and repurpose it for the mechanics of the game, which I can actually cite one of our own designs. Connections repurposes dice in a different way to mimic the formation of relationships.
Yeah, you don't roll them.
Correct. You stack them.
Yes.
So anyway, there's definitely a field of game design that is centered around taking existing things and repurposing those mechanics for a game that you're playing. And in this case, the Discord game that you played is doing the exact same thing, except that it's now using an electronic tool that exists, right? It just picked up, I mean, it's literally like picking up the Jenga tower and repurposing it, right? Yeah. It just picks up Discord and it uses the features that are inherent in Discord, but repurposes them to be a game.
Yeah, I mean, to be entirely honest with you, so this game experience is not a game experience that you could peel out of Discord and try to play at a table.
Not without significant reworking of everything.
I mean, it would be a different game. Might as well just write a new game, correct, right? Yeah. So firstly, because it would be like trying to play Starcrossed without a Jenga tower.
Yeah.
Secondly, the thing that is really interesting about it is, I was even just sitting here thinking, I mean, I played it in Discord, and I'm going to play it in Discord again, obviously. It's set up for it, and it's super easy. I don't even know if you could port it to another, chat platform.
Yeah, it's interesting, because I wonder, for instance, Microsoft Teams has both Teams channels and conferencing simultaneously.
Yeah. So the key thing is that the whole group has to be on the same audio channel.
Right.
At all times, and then you move through different text channels.
Yeah. So Microsoft Teams could actually pull it off. But I mean, you don't need to, because Discord's free and Discord works perfect for this, right?
Right. So you wouldn't.
Yeah, you're not actually exclusion that's taking you out of from just using the platform it's designed on. But what we're getting at is that there are a couple key components that you need, and not every digital communication platform like Zoom couldn't do it, because while Zoom has chat, Zoom does not have multi-room chat in a conference.
Yeah, and actually there's a key part of this, which is we don't want video.
Well, we could all turn off our video, or I actually, as host, can turn off all your video.
Right. And then there's other like really there's sort of things you don't think about when you're using a Discord or a Slack or anything like that necessarily, but that are key components. Like you have to in Discord put on the permissions for that server that everyone can add channels.
Right.
Right. And then there's other specific things like as investigators, you specifically go on push to talk because you are exploring with walkie-talkies.
Yeah, neat, right? That's right?
A cool
way.
So you have to push it to talk.
Right. So I think what's really
like it's very neat.
So I think what's really fascinating, and I think there's no rubric to this, but I'm always interested from a designer listening to other designers, is in games like this, it's the chicken or the egg, right? So like when Epidiah created Dread, was he sitting looking at a Jenga tower going, I wonder if I could make a role-playing game using this thing? Or was he like, I want to make a horror role-playing game that has that creates a tension bleed in players? And what would make good tension? Oh, you know what? Jenga always makes me really nervous. I wonder if I could make a game around that. And I'm wondering if the designer who wrote, tell me the title again, because I keep screwing it up.
There are ghosts in this Discord.
Right. So I'm wondering if they were like, I want to make a haunted house game that can be played online, and then like created it and created it into like they started with that and then picked Discord as their platform to work it on. Or if it was like, I'm gonna make a role-playing game using Discord, and then was like, cool, now what could I do with this? Right.
Or if it was like, there's this cool weird thing about like audio and text interacting with each other in Discord. What could you do with that?
Right. And I know this, I know that this is, from a design point of view, it's hard to, there's no, like I said, there's no one way to do this, right? It's whichever one comes at you first. Whichever one is the, the muse. You and I, when we were working on Connections, did not start with dice stacking. In fact, dice wasn't even the first thing we thought of stacking.
No, we knew we wanted to stack things, though.
No, we didn't even know we wanted to stack things at first.
We got to stacking things.
Well, we did. So the progression was, we thought it would be cool to make a game about trying to build a relationship. Especially and in Connections, the difficulty of building a relationship with two people who are not alike.
Yeah,
right?
I'm trying to remember where we start. I mean, it actually started as a game that you were like, Senda, no one is ever going to play this because while it's fine to play the one person, no one is ever going to want to play the other person in this game because they're torturing them. And I went, oh, yeah.
Right.
That. So there's some iterations.
Right. So the iterations, I mean, there were a couple iterations that got us to the idea of maybe this is a game about how to make a connection to somebody else, and the awkward dance that we go through in trying to make a connection, right? We tell stories, we reveal things about ourselves, we put things out there until a connection forms, and then when it does, we put other things out there to build up the connection, right?
Right. The little trust falls, the little balancing.
Exactly.
acts.
So that was the idea. And then it was that phrase, the balancing acts, that got us into the idea you could do something like the reverse
Jenga.
Yeah, you could do the reverse of Starcross, which would then be to stack stuff. And then we were like, oh, well, maybe we could find kids blocks or something to make the game out of.
Rectangles, it's really easy to stack a Jenga tower upwards.
Yes, exactly.
There's no tension in that. Right. There's no scary business.
Right. We would need weird shapes. Right.
Yeah.
And then that's where we were like, cool, let's go find kids blocks, because kids blocks have all those weird shapes. And
yeah,
then
we're like, that'd be neat.
And then we were like, but wait, what if there was something that had a bunch of weird shapes that are inherently
already
hard to
had.
stack that gamers already have on hand?
Yeah.
And that's how we arrived at dice. Yeah.
Dice.
And
thus Connections is a dice stacking game.
which will eventually be out someday. It is currently with a publisher to be put into an anthology of games for a charity collection that has not come out. But when it does, we'll promote it a bit more. If you've have run into us at a con previously, you may have had a chance to play it or see it in action. And someday when cons come back, you might once again see us. Also,
Someday.
Also do that as well.
Cons will come. Someday my cons will come. Da, 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 da. I don't remember how that song goes.
I'm not sure. But I guess the point I wanted to bring to that was that I always find it fascinating to the chicken and egg question, which is like, which thing did you start with and how did you get to where you were? Right.
I mean, the problem is that in discussing this, I am, of course, already starting to think of ways to hack this to use Discord in a similar fashion to play other games, because it's really just like anything in which the communication should be weird.
Well, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some other cases, especially if you do something with especially if you do something where somebody can control who's muted and who's not. You could do something like a game that involves asynchronous communication.
Right. Well, no, I mean, I was just thinking about really in a very literal, take this Discord has ghosts in it and hack it. Like, what other scenarios does that style of weird communication apply to? Because if you didn't like ghosts, you could absolutely do aliens.
Oh, yeah, right? Totally.
And then it could be a game about trying to understand what the aliens are telling you.
Yeah. That makes sense.
And then you would say the people who are posting in the chat channel can't post actual text. They have to all agree on some sort of we always replace, these letters with this letter or whatever it is. Like they can't text normal things, and then they have to communicate by photos, math, and their weird warp on language, right? Or something. Shit. I'm going to write this.
Yeah, see, that's what happens, right?
Hang on, I'm writing notes.
All right.
Anyway, what's giving you life in gaming?
I think that's the perfect way for me to segue into my section while you jot some notes down.
Yep.
Cool. So what's given me life this week is the concept of payoffs. So payoffs are the things where we seed something in a game, we let it grow for a while, and then we pay it off by completing the loop, right? This is the Chekhov's gun idea, right? If we put the gun up on the mantle in the first act, by the third act, we better have shot someone with it. So I love payoffs because they are a fantastic way, as we know, I'm a big fan of campaigns. They are a fantastic way to show the passage of time in campaigns, because you can culture these things and then pay them off. And I just had one happen in my Forbidden Lands game that is nearly a year old. Now, it is not a major plot point. It was actually a relatively minor plot point about an NPC that the NPC is a dwarf that is pretending to be human by shaving off their beard, saying that they're human, and kind of being quite nasty to other dwarves and things like that. But in our campaign, Bob's character, who is a dwarf, befriended this guy grudgingly. This guy befriended Bob. And for the longest time, Bob is like, no way, this guy is definitely a dwarf, has never confronted him about it, had one very vague conversation about it once, that didn't end with any confirmation, but was like enough where Bob left and was like, no, I swear this guy is a dwarf. And so we previously finished our first major arc, and we are in the couple sessions that are opening up the new arc. So this is like we're doing a bunch of personal. We're doing some personal scenes with each of the characters, and we're doing some other stuff as we're kind of gearing up for the kickoff of the next campaign arc. And I decided that this was the time that I would pay off this. I would pay off this plot line. And I had these other dwarves from the north come and visit Bob, and one of them reveals that he is the brother of this guy, and that this guy was an outcast for reasons. I don't want to get into a whole discussion, but anyway,
reasons. Because reasons.
But then he was like, "I need you to pass like a message to my brother." Right? Tells Bob's character this, and Bob's character's like, "I will do this for you." And it was fantastic watching the look on Bob's face as the NPC is like, "I know this man. He is my brother." And Bob's like, "I knew it." Right? And on top of it, we ended our session with Bob went to the town where this guy lives and is just about to confront him. And that's where we like cliffhangered, right? Like we were like, okay, we're at the allotted time for the session. Next session, we pick up with this scene, right? You know, like this is the scene we're going to lead off with.
Oh, but it's so delightful from a gooey good drama perspective.
Oh, it's fantastic, right? And so it was so good because this NPC has been around since the beginning of like when we started playing, which was like nearly a year ago, and we're 22 sessions in, right? This character has been a decent part of the campaign, in and out, and they've done jobs for this guy, and he's put them up in his inn, and all this stuff. So like they've had multiple touch points with this character. And it was just a joy to be able to pay it off. And it is the thing I love the most about campaigns, right? So when we talk about, on our normal shows where we talk about one-shots and campaigns, one of the things I love about a campaign is this kind of setup and then being patient enough to pay it off later.
You like the long game.
I do, because when I was younger, I was really bad at this. I would come up with these really cool plot points when I was like 16, 17, 18, when I was in high school. I come up with these really cool ideas for plots, and then I would set them up, and then like the next session I would reveal them. Right? And one, it lost some amount of satisfaction, right, for not taking my time. And two, I burned through a lot of ideas really quickly, and I would burn out of the game, and I would have like no ideas left for the campaign.
And then you would reboot it again?
Right. So ironically, in a parallel to other things when you are in high school, I learned to slow down my plots, stretch them out a bit longer for a more satisfying climax. I think is what I'm trying to say. It was a lesson well learned on many fronts for young Phil.
He looks so pleased with himself. None of y'all can see him but me. Oh, that was the pleased with myself coffee smirk I just got.
Ah, yes, indeed. So what's given me life is payoffs, and I love when I can get a good payoff in a campaign. And this was one, even though it was a minor NPC in a minor arc. It was really fun after a year to deliver that piece.
Yeah, you made good on it.
I did. And was patient, right? I like waited that one out. Cool.
Closing the loop is good. All right, yeah, let's talk about not the kitchen this week.
Things that are giving us life on
Netflix.
TV. Yeah, Netflix is fine. Mine was on Netflix too. Things that were giving us life on Netflix. Mine is old. Mine is older. Yours is brand new.
Mine is brand new, and I'm going to not spoilers.
Yes, I need to put down some serious spoiler alerts. Like, not spoiler alerts. I need to restrict you.
I am not going to spoil anything to the best of my ability.
All right.
Because I want everyone to go watch it, but it's only been out for 3 days.
So, what's giving you life?
I mean, do you want to go first in case I don't stop talking?
No, it's fine. I'll stop you.
Okay, so some of you may know that I really enjoyed.
Let's stop for a second. If we're going to do this segment, you need to take a deep breath.
No. Okay.
You need to use less of the same word over and over and just talk it through.
See, they're getting more of the outtakes now embedded in the show itself, just folded gently in, like the club soda that I folded into the scallion pancakes.
Onward, please.
So some of you may know that I really enjoyed the new SheRa that DreamWorks and Netflix have been putting out. And they did this. It's wonderful. It's just absolutely wonderful. And you should all absolutely go watch it. It is 5 seasons long. And the 5th season dropped on Friday, last Friday, May 15th. I have been waiting for it. I think since I came back from Origins last year. I think that's when I watched the end of season 4. Without any spoilers, the last episode of the end of season 4 is like the kind of cliffhanger that sort of leaves me speechless and just makes me want to scream and just, yell why and that sort of thing. And then they left us there for a year. And so the 5th season came out on Friday. And it is 13 episodes long. I think they're about 25 minutes each. We watched the first 11 episodes on Friday night.
Oof.
And saved the last 2 for Saturday.
That is, I don't know if I'm capable of actually spending that much time sitting watching something in a row.
I wasn't sure I would be able to, but guess what?
I mean, 11 is like 5.5 hours, right?
We could have finished it that night, but I was very worried about my cat, and so we did not.
Yeah.
But it was... So speaking of payoffs, this series is one of those cartoon series that, like, the first season, you're like, oh, fun, a cute, kind of kids-oriented, but adults enjoy watching too show. Fun, that's fun. And then season 2, you're like, actually, I don't care if my child is watching this. I'm watching it too. And then season 3, you're like, I'm not waiting for him to watch this. And then season 4, you're like, I can't put this thing down or I'll die. And then you wait a year for season 5. And then they do amazing things and you get the payoff for everything. Everything since episode 1. They paid it off. And it was one of the most satisfying television experiences I have ever had in my life. Also had so many feels. So very many feels. I don't want to talk about anything in any sort of specific way because as I said, it's only been out for 3 days and I binged it in 2. So, actually it's been out for 4 days? Yeah, no, 3 days. Yeah, I watched it all last Friday. So I should probably stop talking there. Other than the fact that it is amazing. I love it. It is diverse in all of the directions, in all of the amazing ways, in a level of just like assumed diversity that is heartwarming. It makes me feel warm and fuzzy inside. And I love it. It is just I can't say enough good things about it, truly. It is definitely a show that I watched and was like, I am so glad that my child and other children have this caliber of cartoon that they can be watching to like, help set their expectations in life. Because it just truly amazing. I need to go actually watch at least the last 2 episodes again, if not the entire season again, just because in the same way that Captain Marvel was something that took me a little bit of time to digest and then I had to go watch it again, this did that to me as well. And it was really, really, really good. I can't say enough good things about this show. If we can continue to create this kind of thing in this world, we're all going to be okay. There's good people out here, and I'm so appreciative that someone fought to get this through and someone approved it with money and all of that stuff, right? So, so good.
Do you want to take a breath?
You should probably talk now. I don't know if there's anything else I can say without getting spoilery. So.
No, I think that's fair. But I think what's really cool is, I mean, this is a series finale, right? So payoffs are a big deal. And, a show that can be really good about paying off everything, especially the little things, right? Like the little payoffs are the treats to the people who've been watching all along, right? Yeah. Like it's easy to pay off the big things, right? Like it's easy to pay off the main plot lines because you're supposed to, right? Stories have a start, middle, finish.
But we didn't know if they're going to do the thing.
Easy.
Shit. I'm not saying anything.
I'm talking in generals. Don't explode over there. So I think that from a gaming perspective, right, if we're talking about gaming stuff, it's really easy to pay off the big stuff because that's closing out plot arcs. Like that's handling your arcs and stuff like that. What's really satisfying for the long-term viewer, or in the case of your game, player who's been playing all through the campaign, is to pick up these small things and close them out, right?
Yeah.
Those little things are extremely satisfying. And in order to close out all the little things, you actually need to utilize a tool that we are very fond of, that we did a whole episode on, called the denouement.
It's true.
Right? The denouement, the cuddling of your story plot, right?
They definitely did that in SheRa.
Yeah, like so they went through the denouement and closed out things, and so, which is what you're supposed to do, right? Like how satisfying. I'm sure the show would have been super satisfying if it ended right after the climax, but how much more satisfying was it to have completed the climax and then had however much time they had to close off everything else?
Yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah, that's the difference, right? And that's what we talk about when we talk about the denouement, when we talk about payoffs and those kinds of things, right? Like that's what makes our story brains, right? Our story brains very happy, is that our story brains always look for, if you start a story, our story brain wants to know the end of that story. And if you start arcs or plots and you don't complete them, it makes our story brains itchy because we don't like a story that we don't know the ending to. So much so that when media doesn't give us an ending, we will start to infer stuff from it, right? We'll just take liberties and infer things about endings of stuff because we're like, well, they didn't do it, but I think what happened was, right? Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, because we need to end it.
But
Or you can have a podcast and you think that you're like, well, this is kind of an end point, and then like all you hear about for years later is like, so when are you releasing the rest of this story?
Yes.
Oops.
So yeah. All right, cool. I will do mine briefly since we're getting there on time.
Yes. Sorry.
No, it's fine. I will use less varies, and hopefully I can get all of mine.
It wasn't very. It was really.
Really,
but
yes.
It was very, 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 very good. You can talk now.
I hope so. So what's given me life this week is the same thing that's been giving me life for the last couple weeks. It has been the show that has kind of gotten me through lockdown. Before lockdown, I was not watching it. But all right, so here's what happened. So when lockdown started, I was like, I I needed to kind of prioritize some self-care, and I was like, cool, I should just try to find stuff that makes me happy. And I started off by watching Picard on CBS, and I enjoyed that immensely. But that immediately just reminded me of how much I love and simultaneously missed Star Trek in my life.
Yeah.
So I started watching, I cherry picked an episode of DS9. I don't even remember which one I started with, but it was like somewhere in season 4. And I just like cherry picked an episode. I was like, cool, I'm going to watch this episode. And then
wasn't it the one with the when the walls fell?
Oh, it's not even the right. That's not even the right series.
I don't know.
That's a next.
That was what you were talking.
We're gonna be having some remedial Star Trek for you.
I have never watched any Star Trek, so you can remove my nerd card now and catch.
Oh, we're not removing
later.
it. We're not removing it. We're gonna have a book club where we're just gonna watch episodes and talk about them.
It's gonna be an episode club.
Yes, it's gonna be an episode club.
Okay, well, I'm in.
Anyway, I picked a Deep Space Nine episode, not a Next Gen episode.
My bad.
I started watching, and I was like, I'm just home, right? Like, I make my breakfast in the morning, or after work. I was like, I'm just gonna start watching these in order again, because I never watched enough Deep Space Nine. Because it wasn't in syndication. I watched the original run, and then I missed a lot of it in syndication. So I just been going back and like watching Star Trek again, and I've been cherry picking because in between sometimes I actually get an episode from Next Gen. I did watch that episode. That's Darmok, the name of that episode.
Isn't that where you started though, and then you ended up going off and watching?
No, I
DS9?
picked the Deep Space Nine episode first.
Okay.
Deep Space Nine is my all-time favorite.
Okay.
And I was cherry picking some Voyager episodes and things like that. Anyway. It renewed my love for Star Trek, and to be honest, in what is an incredibly bleak time, and a time where I have lost all faith in my government, my federal government, not my state government. I'm quite relieved to have a state government that's doing something. It was nice to watch stories about an organization that is built on truth, on duty, on honor, and just doing good. And Deep Space Nine is definitely the 90s Star Trek, so it is a little grittier than Next Gen. Next Gen is the 80s Star Trek. It is very shiny, whereas Deep Space Nine is very gritty. And I tend to like gritty things, but Deep Space Nine is like most Star Trek, is about duty, and it just was nice to watch. It's been nice to watch something positive. But the fun part is, having watched all of Deep Space Nine, I actually know all these episodes, but don't remember them all. So I'm pleasantly surprised at parts of things that I actually know have happened.
Right.
And then I'm like, oh. And then I totally forgot the episode where Worf joins the cast. Worf is from the Next Gen series, and he crosses over to Deep Space Nine when Next Gen goes off the air. And I totally forgot about it, so I fell for it, right? I'm watching the episode, and they're like, it takes a Klingon to know a Klingon. Then the captain's like, get me Starfleet Command. And I'm like, that's an interesting statement. And then all of a sudden, Worf comes walking on the station. I'm like, yes! And I'm like, dumbass, he joined the cast. We watched this episode 20 years ago. But it was all exciting all over again. It's happened a couple times where I've suddenly discovered a thing that I totally know, but I totally forgot. So anyway, that has definitely been bringing me life. And it's been bringing me life in a role-playing capacity because it inspired me to go get a copy of Star Trek Adventures by Modiphius. And I started reading that, and I was pleasantly surprised because that game, I was worried it was going to be a bit fiddly or too traditional, and I wasn't going to be really into running it. But I started reading it, and I'm like, oh, I could run this game. So I'm going to run a Star Trek game at some point. I'm not in any rush. I'm playing games right now, but at some point when my schedule frees up, I'm going to be running a Star Trek game.
Yeah.
And probably going to I may choose to run that one online because one of the things I've discovered in the Misdirected Mark community, I am not alone.
No, you are
There are
not
some
alone.
other serious Trek nerds that have been kind of laying dormant.
I don't know if they've really been as dormant as you seem to think. Oh, goodness. I'm sorry. My computer's getting very warm, and I have it stacked on top of another computer.
No, it's okay.
This is now also my workspace.
But people like Weregator, John Carney, Andy, like, there have been some people who have been like expressing a serious interest, and I was like, this might make a fun online game. Like, just get some really awesome humans, and we'll play some awesome humans that are into Trek, and let's play some Trek. You can also join. We'll just make you the ensign.
Yeah, I'm like, put me in a red shirt. No, not a red shirt. Then I would die. I mean, you can give me a different red shirt every time.
All right, let's be clear. Let's be clear. Red shirts only die in the original series. In Next Gen forward, they changed the colors between Command and Operations. Command is now red, and Operations is yellow. Yellow shirts die now. Anyway, we
need to get out of here.
We need to get out of here, and you need to learn a lot of Star Trek, is what I've learned.
I don't know any Star Trek.
It's time.
I know way more Stargate.
Yeah, it's time to learn some Star Trek. All right.
Okay.
Senda, what we normally do in order to get out of here.
No, it's okay. I'll make one up. You just
cool. We normally talk about another show on the Misdirected Market Network. Will you tell me about a show on the Misdirected Market Network that you could listen to?
Yeah, on the lounge, you can join Doc Palindrome talking with all sorts of other cool gamer peeps and doing good interviews, because you never know what's going to happen in the lounge. It could be onion and peanut butter sandwiches with Margaret.
Yeah.
Because you should also be listening to Bonus Experience. So,
all right. You're
who knows?
very sprawly tonight. One show was enough.
No.
Senda,
it's because we were talking about SheRa.
Without going overboard, what are the ways people can find us on the internet?
Well, you can find us on Twitter at Pandas Talk Games. You can find us in the Misdirected Mark forums, for sure. Or you can drop us an email, panda@misdirectedmark.com. And Phil, once they find us in one of those places, what can they do with that information?
So in the meantime, while we're chit-chatting, we still would like to build up a repertoire of topics that we would like to go over when things lighten up a bit. So if you listen to previous episodes of the show, you know that we source our show completely from topics from you listeners. Try not to do this ourselves. And we would love to get some fresh topics so that when we do come out of quarantine, we'll grab those topics and make fantastic shows out of them. And if you like what we do here elsewhere on the Misdirected Mark Network, please consider supporting our Patreon campaign. Patrons of the campaign get all sorts of interesting things. You get, first and foremost, you get access to the Slack Room for Life. That is our Slack channel. It is just full of awesome humans just there every day talking about role-playing and life and everything else. I can't endorse it enough. That is my first place to go when I jump online. Slack Room for Life. You get the bonus outtakes from this show when we bonus outtake them. That's the thing we normally do.
Yeah, which, just to be clear, there are bonus outtakes for every single one of these chit chats.
Yes.
I'm just not editing the outtakes. We're recording a straight 10 to 15 minutes of nonsense.
Right.
And it's yours.
Yes. And then you also get the Misdirected Mark after show, which is like 10 to 15 minutes of nonsense at the end of the Misdirected Mark show.
Yeah, we're basically doing an after show.
Yes, that's what I said at the beginning. You also get our show notes when we do show notes. Chit Chats don't have show notes, but our regular shows have show notes, so you can always take a look at those. And we have various goodies goodies and bonuses and surprises and things we like to shower upon our patrons when things are more normal. Not doing it so much right now as much as we're all just kind of hunkering down and taking care of each other.
One more cool thing that we should mention, because this is a thing that has started reasonably recently. If you are a Patreon backer, you also get extra audio from Down with D&D in the form of sneak attacks.
Oh, yes, the sneak attack. Oh, and last thing I'll just mention really quickly. The last thing is you can also join us on the Misdirected Mark Luncheon.
lunches on Fridays. We have delightful lunches.
Fridays at 12:30 Eastern on Zoom. We post the information in the Slack room, and you're welcome to come join us. There's usually like 10 to 15 people in the Zoom room, and just chatting away, eating lunch, talking and hanging out.
I mean, some
eating
people
lunch
are eating
depending
lunch.
on your time zone.
Some of us are like, if I were eating, it would be second breakfasts.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying not to do second breakfasts because I'm currently maintaining. I have not gained nor lost any weight in the pandemic, so I'm good. I'm happy.
Oof, you are a rodeo tonight. I'm going to try to get to the end of this show. We're at 50 minutes, and you are just all over the place.
It's fine. I don't have to edit it. I believe in you. Keep going.
If there's another thing you can do that helps out the show immensely, you can help us in our If You Listen to Us, You Will Love Us campaign by helping other people find us to listen to us. Senda's going to tell you about a way to do that in a moment. I'm going to tell you another way that already paid off a dividend in the past week. If you want, you can just tweet about the show. Like if somebody's like, hey, is there a good show to listen to? You could tweet us. Like that's okay.
We like you. I feel like at this point we have to look up really quickly and I'm sorry. Anyway.
You know what? I'm sorry, everyone. Tonight,
it's your fault this
time. Somebody's a little excited.
Right.
But what you would like to do is thank
you, Melissa.
Yes, that's what you would like to do.
That is what I would like to do. But you could also leave us a rating or review on Apple Podcast or the podcatcher of your choice, because what that does is it futzes with their cool little algorithm and hopefully pushes us more up towards the top so that when someone searches for games as a hobby or pandas, I don't know if they'd want to listen to us if they just searched for pandas, but, maybe. Then they're more likely to find us because they're like, cool, people like this show and they listen to it. So every new review we get really does actually help new people find the show, which is great. But so does Twitter. So feel free to do Twitter too. We appreciate it.
It really helps us
much.
in every direction.
And it really kind of made my day.
It always does. It does.
It always does. It's just good.
All right. Hey, Senda, now that you're finished with SheRa, what are you going to watch next on Netflix?
I have homework. It's your name.
Show me what you got. 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 Show me what you got.
This show is a joint production of She's a Super Geek and Misdirected Mark Productions, the media arm of Encoded Designs.
Show me what you got. 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 Show me what you got.